At 79, Sally Field is finally telling the truth Hollywood never wanted to hear. After decades of silence, she's exposing the actors who made her life on set a living nightmare. And the names she reveals will change the way you see her, and them, forever.
Well, what are we going to do when we get home?
Go to bed. For a week.
Good idea.
To millions, Sally Field and Burt Reynolds were the perfect Hollywood couple. Playful, passionate, and larger than life. Their chemistry in Smokey and the Bandit made audiences believe their love was real, unstoppable, and effortless. But when the cameras stopped rolling, Sally discovered a different man. One who used charm, not to love, but to control. In her memoir In Pieces, she revealed how Burt's dominance slowly eroded her sense of self. He belittled her ideas, interrupted her mid-sentence, and treated her as though she were an accessory to his fame. To the world, his teasing looked harmless. To her, it was quiet cruelty. He decided when she spoke, what she wore, how she appeared, and when she resisted, he withdrew affection like punishment. I was there, she later said, but not me, not the full me. Even as their careers soared, Sally felt small beside him, loved only on his terms. Yet despite the hurt, she admitted she did love him, deeply. But he hurt me, she confessed, and he never understood how much. To the public, Burt Reynolds was the bandit, charming, bold, untouchable. But to Sally Field, he was heartbreak in disguise, proof that sometimes the greatest pain hides behind the brightest smile.
You fixed it to lose.
I don't lose.
They paid you to lay down, didn't they?
When Sally Field signed on to star alongside Tommy Lee Jones in Backroads, she expected intensity, not ice. The film promised raw emotion and depth, a chance for two powerhouse actors to bring broken characters to life. But from the very first day on set, Sally realized something was off. Jones wasn't just distant, he was deliberately cold. He rarely spoke, avoided eye contact, and treated her like she didn't belong there. Sally, known for her warmth and empathy, tried to connect. Between takes, she'd crack small jokes, ask about his process, even start gentle conversations. But he wouldn't budge. He'd stare past her, answer with silence, and walk away as soon as the camera stopped rolling. It was like acting opposite a wall, she later said. His indifference wasn't just unkind, it was humiliating. Critics would later describe their lack of chemistry, but what they didn't know was that there was no chemistry to find. For Sally, who built her craft on vulnerability and collaboration, the experience was devastating. We were supposed to play two damaged souls learning to love, she reflected, but I was playing alone. When filming wrapped, she left the set emotionally drained and determined never to work with him again. To the world, Tommy Lee Jones was the brooding genius. But to Sally Field, he was proof that arrogance can freeze even the warmest heart.
Did you know that he was so short that they used to have to dig a ditch for the girls to stand in to kiss him?
When Sally Field began filming Say Goodbye, Maggie Cole, she hoped it would be a challenging but rewarding project, a character-driven story that would let her dig deep emotionally. Instead, it turned to one of the most chaotic and exhausting experiences of her career. And the reason, she later admitted, was her co-star, Robert Blake. From the moment he stepped on set, Blake made it clear he played by his own rules. He'd change lines mid-scene, ignore direction, and improvise wildly. Not to improve the story, but to seize control of it. Sally tried to stay professional, adapting to his unpredictable behavior, but it was impossible to build rhythm with someone who thrived on chaos. One moment, he'd deliver a line with quiet intensity. The next, he'd explode, throwing off everyone around him. Crew members described the atmosphere as tense and volatile, with Blake's mood swings setting the tone for each day. Sally later said that working with him felt less like acting and more like surviving. There are actors who act, she reflected, and actors who make everyone else small so they can feel big. Robert was the second kind. The constant outbursts, the manipulation, the tension, it all wore her down. Eventually, the production crumbled under the weight of it. For Sally, it wasn't just a failed project, it was a lesson in self-preservation. She walked away, vowing never again to mistake instability for genius.
Oh, honey, are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
When Steel Magnolias began filming in 1989, it felt like lightning in a bottle. 6 powerful women telling a story about love, resilience, and loss. The world saw it as a celebration of female strength. But for Sally Field, it became a test of patience and endurance. Her biggest challenge wasn't her emotional scenes, it was her co-star, Shirley MacLaine. On paper, they were a dream duo. two Oscar-winning legends sharing the screen. But in reality, the tension between them was palpable from the very start. Sally approached her role as Malin with raw sincerity, a mother clinging to faith and composure while her world quietly fell apart. Shirley, who played Ouiser, approached her character and everyone around her like a battlefield. She was brash, sarcastic, and constantly competing for attention. Crew members later recalled how Shirley would interrupt takes to add unscripted jokes, often at Sally's expense. During one particularly emotional scene, Sally poured her soul into a performance that took her days to prepare for. But Shirley repeatedly cut in with quips and improvised one-liners, turning Sally's grief into awkward humor. It wasn't just frustrating, it was humiliating. Still, Sally stayed professional. She smiled through the tension, hit her marks, and gave everything she had to the story. But privately, she was drained. She brought a storm with her wherever she went, Sally later said. It wasn't about the scene, it was about winning it. Despite the film's success and the public image of sisterhood, Sally never forgot the exhaustion that came with sharing the screen with someone who saw every moment as a competition. To the audience, Steel Magnolias was heartwarming. To Sally Field, it was survival, a painful reminder that not every bond forged on screen exists off it.
I hear the suffixes of the surnames around me, and that's all like Bloomberg, Wittstein, Gold, Stickman, Hackman, Hachen.
When Sally Field signed on for Kiss Me Goodbye, she was ready for something lighthearted, a break from the intensity of her earlier roles. The film was meant to be a romantic comedy, sweet and simple, but the experience became anything but. Her co-star, James Woods, turned what should have been a joyful project into a quiet, psychological battle. Woods was known for his sharp intellect and brooding intensity, but on set, those qualities took a darker turn. He questioned everything, the script, the director, even Sally's delivery, as if every scene needed to orbit around him. He wasn't there to collaborate, Sally later said. He was there to control. His constant rewrites and unsolicited critiques chipped away at the film's rhythm and at Sally's confidence. Between takes, Woods would lean in with what sounded like encouragement, but his words were laced with condescension. He'd tell her she wasn't giving enough, or that her emotions didn't feel authentic. It wasn't guidance, it was dominance disguised as intellect. It was like being dissected, she recalled, not directed. The longer it went on, the more she began to doubt herself, wondering if maybe she wasn't doing enough. That was exactly what he wanted. By the end of filming, Sally wasn't angry. She was exhausted. It wasn't the role that tired me, she later admitted. It was the constant defense of my worth. The experience changed her. She realized how often women in Hollywood were made to shrink in the presence of male ego. From that point forward, she promised herself one thing. Never again would she confuse arrogance with brilliance. James Woods might have thought he'd won the upper hand, but in truth, he taught her something far more powerful: how to reclaim her voice and never hand it away again.
I'm a little nervous.
Just think of them as something friendly.
What?
Like a firing squad.
Among all the names Sally Field revealed, this one shocked everyone the most: Dustin Hoffman. They never shared the screen, yet one meeting with him left a wound that lingered for years. It happened in the early 1980s during an audition for a film that never got made. Sally, already an acclaimed actress with 2 Emmys to her name, walked in expecting a professional reading. Instead, she walked into humiliation. Before she even began, Hoffman dominated the room, joking loudly with the producers, making sly remarks about the script, and positioning himself as the authority. When Sally started her lines, he interrupted within seconds. He corrected her tone, mocked her delivery, and laughed as she tried to regain focus. It wasn't about collaboration, it was about control. It felt like being tested, she said later, not auditioning. Every attempt she made to find her footing, he undercut with another interruption. When the audition ended, she left shaken, embarrassed, and unsure of herself. But the final blow came days later, when a mutual acquaintance told her that Hoffman had bragged about sabotaging her reading. The chemistry wasn't there, he'd reportedly said, and I made sure of it. For Sally, that wasn't just cruel, it was devastating. She spent weeks wondering what she'd done wrong, only to realize later that the fault wasn't hers at all. It was his ego, his need to dominate every space he entered, even if it meant crushing someone else's confidence. It wasn't my failure, she said years later. It was his. That day marked a turning point for Sally Field. It was the moment she stopped seeking validation from powerful men and started trusting her own voice again. Dustin Hoffman may never have realized the impact of that day, but for Sally, it was unforgettable. He taught her one thing she never forgot. In Hollywood, the hardest battle isn't for fame, it's for dignity. For decades, Sally Field was Hollywood's sweetheart, the smile that lit up a screen, the voice that made even silence feel human. But behind the grace was a woman who had endured more than applause could ever heal. 6 men, 6 stories, and one truth that cuts deeper than fame. Kindness doesn't always stand a chance in a room full of ego. Burt Reynolds taught her that love without respect is just possession. Tommy Lee Jones showed her how cold ambition can freeze even art. Robert Blake reminded her that chaos is never creativity. Shirley MacLaine proved that talent means nothing without humility. James Woods turned intellect into cruelty. And Dustin Hoffman, he showed her how easily power can disguise itself as genius. But through all of it, Sally never broke. She learned, she grew, and she came out stronger, not as the ingenue Hollywood adored, but as the woman who finally spoke. At 79, she no longer needed to be liked. She needed to be honest. And maybe that's the real story here. Not the 6 men she hated, but the one woman she finally refused to silence. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do in Hollywood is tell the truth.